show you a few of the Instagram automation features, and then we'll start the discussion. So if that sounds good, everyone just let me know in the chat. Raise their hands off and on like this. Yeah, raise and lower their hands. So everyone can let me know that's a fire agenda. All right, cool. So I'm gonna share my screen real quick. All right, cool. So we have Instagram automation by Manychat. But before we do, I think we dive into the features. It's worth like taking a step back and thinking about the opportunity that is on Instagram, just from an ads and just organic perspective. Here's some fast facts about Instagram, right? 1 billion monthly active users, right? 500 million daily active users, Instagram story users. These are people who interact with IG stories, right? 30 minutes is the average amount of time a user spends on IG. Obviously, we all know that we've spent way more time on that some days, just sitting on the bed and scrolling through Instagram for forever. We have a pretty fair and even gender split as well, right? 51% women, 49% men. And in terms of how marketers think about Instagram, 69% of them plan to spend most of their influencer budget on Instagram, which obviously makes sense. In terms of the top advertiser industries on Instagram, as you can see there, the top 7, some of them might not be that surprising. Retail is an obvious top advertiser. We've all seen ads for products like baby diapers, so, or for the next short or cosmetics, what have you. So this is not surprising, and I wasn't really super surprised. I think what is kind of surprising was automotive. Maybe I'm just not in the right demographic to be shown car ads yet, and because I'm not old enough and not in the right income bracket, but that's a bit surprising to me. And the most kind of popular industries on Instagram in terms of just the popular kind of verticals in terms of engagement are celebrities and creators, right? Personal goods, merchandise, et cetera, et cetera. So moving forward, in terms of the volume of Instagram messaging and kind of what is the conversation kind of happening on IG, IG users message a business over 400 million times a day, right? And so that is critical to understand, which means that when it comes to peer-to-business messaging, aka regular people, aka your customers messaging you, the business, consumers do that already 400 million times a day. And so this consumer behavior is already happening, which is why I think Instagram, the company, wanted to give partners like Manychat the ability to start to automate some of these conversations, right? Because this consumer behavior is already happening. And so now, as businesses, you guys are able to capitalize on this kind of natural and existing consumer behavior. And I think what's really interesting is that over 50% or around 50% of the peer-to-business, the customer-to-business messaging starts from Instagram stories, right? And we kind of know, well, we can hypothesize about why that is. One of the reasons possibly is that Instagram stories, the format makes it really easy for a consumer to message you, right? You're on stories, you're scrolling through, the text box is right there at the bottom. And so it's really easy for someone to message someone from a story, right? 40% of the messages come from the profile and 10% comes from actual posts, right? So regular posts. And 40, from the profile, it means you just go to the IG account and then click message. And the top reasons why Instagram users message your business, not surprising. If you're a business, I'm sure you've seen some of these before. People have questions about the product. How do I use it? Is this good for me? Will this fit in a size 0, right? Et cetera, et cetera. And customer support, as we all know, right? And once we open up a communication channel with our customers, it's going to get flooded with customer support. Everything from where's my package to hey, this water bottle, my God, doesn't work anymore. So that's some stats around Instagram messaging. And some quick stats for Instagram ads, right? So 4 million businesses use Instagram stories ads monthly. I'm sure we'll get into this later, but it's one of the most popular kind of ad formats out there. 89% of stories ads that emphasize a call to action perform better, 89% of the time. So that's not surprising, right? As marketers, we always got to provide a CTA, and obviously stories ads that do that perform better. Instagram is projected to earn $18 billion in ad revenue in 2021. Sorry, there's a little typo there, but that's a lot of money. And as you can see, the share of Instagram ad spend relative to other platforms like TikTok or Facebook, right? Instagram is growing, and it has grown over the past 5 years, but continues to grow. All right, quick run through of the Instagram automation features by Manychat. We're going to go really quickly. Here's a list of the features that are going to be available, right, by Manychat. We have, if you are new to Manychat, maybe some of these won't be familiar to you, but if you are familiar with Manychat, some of these will be known bread and butter. We have Instagram conversations in Flow Builder. We have the ability to trigger conversations and stuff in Flow Builder from keywords. We have automatic replies, messages, and reactions to individual and specific post comments, aka the common growth tool. We have replies and business automations for all story mentions. And this is actually something net new to Instagram. We know, because of the stats that we showed earlier, that a lot of conversations start from stories, which makes sense. And stories is a super popular format. So what we're doing with Instagram automation is being able to trigger something based off a story mention. So if a user mentions your account in a story, you'll be able to trigger something within Flow Builder, et cetera, et cetera. And as you'll see, there's a way to as we'll demonstrate in a bit, there's a way to, let's say, run scalable, repeatable kind of IG messaging ads. We currently don't have a way that's as seamless as the JSON growth tool. But as you'll see, there is a way to link kind of the ads kind of manager side into kind of IG automation. And as always, you'll be able to capture critical user information like emails and phone numbers and save them to Manychat. So, for those who are new to Manychat, what you see on the back end is these complex flows and all this automation. And what they see, what your customers will see, is simply an automated conversation. So that's great. So just some examples of some of the features and actions, right? And some of the use cases you'll be able to do is create stories and create story ads and start conversations, right? A super popular kind of organic behavior that businesses are already doing are creating stories and say, hey, message me this word and I'll deliver like a lead magnet to you, right? And so people and businesses are already doing this. And so with IG automation, you'll be able to automate kind of the responses to this. So that's great. We know that lives are a really popular kind of format for people to use. So what you can do is provide a more direct CTA, and then get to create some follow-up engagement, right? So again, it's another CTA in a different kind of IG format. As always, this looks a bit complicated, but you'll be able to build automated lead qualification funnels and collect information from the qualified leads and ensure that you disqualify some unqualified leads and only speak to the most qualified leads and ensure you save your time accordingly. So what's interesting about Ads Manager is that there is a format in Ads Manager called a message template. And you can access this message template in Ads Manager if you set a messages campaign objective, and then you create click to IG ad, and you click message template, and in Ads Manager you're able to actually customize these options. And so the CTA on IG, if you click these options, the CTA on the story is actually send message. So people will swipe up, consumers will swipe up, they'll see this kind of interim modal window, and then they'll click one of these buttons, and then of course they'll trigger a conversation. So the way to connect kind of IG automation with ads is to create a keyword for this word ebook, like we showed earlier, and then that'll kick off the automation. So that's one way to run scalable, engageable kind of Instagram ads using IG automation. With the story mentions trigger, you'll be able to leverage kind of Instagram's natural virality for more followers or for whatever kind of business outcome you're interested in, right? So with story mention trigger, you'll be able to fire off a message whenever someone mentions you. You got to use this engagement wisely, obviously, since it'll trigger a lot of messages. But one way to do this is to thank people for the mention, give them a discount, or ask them to continue to share the story for more followers. Here we have a classic kind of, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, a feature called conversation starters. Conversation starters appear to new people who have not messaged your IG account before. And as you can see, you have like 4 prompts here, right? And that allows kind of like new messengers or people who haven't messaged your account before a super easy way to start the conversation. And it gives them a prompt, right? It allows them to not have a blank slate and make it really easy for them to start a conversation. A best practice is to have kind of the most frequently asked questions here, so you can anticipate some of the FAQs and answer them right away before they even like reach your team. So we have comments growth tool. I won't go into it, but it's a pretty powerful feature, right? Post comments, get an automated message, et cetera, et cetera. That's great. And I'll end there. So those are rundown of the features. That's really amazing. So it's going to be really awesome. So I know that Trilcy has a limited time with us. So I'm going to start with her first, actually, in terms of like the questions. Trilcy has to run because she has an appointment to get a vaccine, and that's the biggest priority is getting everyone vaccinated. So let's actually start with her. So Trilcy, a very broad general question about IG ads, like outside of Instagram automation. First question is really easy. Like, have you run IG ads before, and why?
Yes, I have. And why? Because there's a lot of the newer generations that are not on Facebook. I have encountered a ton of, I will call them children, even though I am a toddler myself, that do not even have Facebook. So it is really necessary, if your brand is targeting Gen Z and millennials, to run Instagram ads in order to reach them.
So for targeting you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, makes sense. Cool. I think in your experience, like, and this is a very broad question, what were the IG ads that you considered to be like the most successful, and what was the kind of the reasons behind some of their success? Right? Was it copy? Was it creative? Was it your targeting? Let us know, like, kind of what's your secret sauce behind the most successful kind of IG ads that you've run before?
I think, at least for me in the area that I'm in, the secret comes from actually being relatable and throwing out something in the ad that people can feel that speaks to them. So I always say, if you're going to be selling a hose, you have to sell the sequía, which is the lack of rainwater. I forget the name in English. You don't sell the hose, you sell the lack of water. So when you're trying to tell stories, when you're trying to tell people how something is going to be beneficial for the environment, you have to consider that we're speaking to 2 different generations, or even 3 or 4 different generations. Gen Z and millennials respond better to things that speak to their values. And that is taking care of the environment, taking care of their bodies, taking care of their mental health. So for example, running ads that show the millennials, the youngsters, how a certain product is going to be beneficial for the environment, telling them there are 200,000 mattresses being thrown away each year that are pollutants for 180 years that don't decompose, whereas this company is doing this to limit that pollution. That is something they react to. When you tell them, for example, for the gym, that this is not a get fit kind of gym, we are talking about mental health, we're talking about community, we're talking about support and aid. And when you actually show real faces with real stories from real people that have engaged with this brand, that makes it believable. And something really important to take into consideration is that the young generations don't trust products, they don't trust brands, they trust the people that speak about them. So if you can, I think we always end up talking about this no matter the channel, but when you can put real people sharing their stories and how this product or service has either changed their life, changed their health in a beneficial way, or make them realize something that they were not considering before, those are the ads that convert the most. And when you can place that in a story that makes people engage, then we're good.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure Paul and Lauren have a lot to say about that, because I know that influencers are a key part of the strategy. So we'll circle back to them in a bit. But yeah, it makes sense. I think what I heard there was like being relatable, trying to tell stories instead of trying to hawk the product, right? And speaking to kind of your customers, trying to speak to your customers' values, And I think for a lot of marketers out there, it's sometimes difficult, right, to get at the core value of what their customers really value, right? And I think that some marketers maybe just try to understand their customers at a very surface level. Like, if they're selling a hose, right? Like my customers value getting their garden wet. Of course, that's what they value, right? So you as a kind of marketer and business owner, like how did you really like understand and get insight into kind of like your customer values, or at least the values of the customers that you work with?
Because something that I always heard from my dad, from my grandpa, from my aunt when I was working in the family business was, don't make triggering ads. They always said, don't make triggering ads. And for so long, I followed that. And Luna wants to say hi, like she always does. Hi, baby.
Oh.
So they always said, don't make triggering ads. Don't make things that are going to be about topics that can be complex and will cause a discussion. So by listening to that, I didn't agree, followed their instructions for a few years. And then I decided that expressing the company's values or support for certain things was actually going to harness more energy than staying quiet. So when we started playing around, and this was years ago, 7-8 years ago, we started playing around with the complicated discussions and putting around ads on Facebook back then that were targeted towards the values the company wanted to represent, the family that we all wanted to create within our community, and just speaking loudly about what the company believes in. For the gym, for example, that's community, that is body positivity. For the mattress store, it is climate change, it is pollution. And when you actually put those conversations out there, the people who think the same are going to react the hardest, because they're looking for that support as well. They're looking for brands that are going to move those values and those beliefs forward. So when you can engage in that conversation, you don't have to be messy. You don't have to make it a debate. You don't have to make it angry. You can just open up conversations and say, this does this specific thing, and here we're trying to create this. And I think I told you, Jonathan, about an example on Instagram where we had a beautiful, gorgeous woman we took a picture of with an amazing body lifting weights, and she had cellulite on her thighs, and she looked amazing. And there was this one company that stole that photo from the Instagram and placed a before and after using another person without cellulite. And we were so angry because that's not what the IG wants to express. Like, that's not what that company wants to express. So for the company to engage in, let's say, a battle to say, no, what this woman is looking like is okay, and we love her for that. She's strong, she's healthy. Look at her lifting weights. It actually rallied a lot of women behind that conversation. Like, yes, don't shame. Because you're a gym, you're not going to be promoting unrealistic standards. And all the people on Instagram who were behind that conversation started pushing the brand forward more and more and more, until it became almost a viral situation that a gym was supporting body positivity.
Yeah, I hear you. That's a great example. I think that goes to, again, like speaking or leveraging the power of kind of your own customers and getting out of the way and allowing them to speak on your behalf. So that's a great example. So, before you leave, I want to get tactical here. Like you have a lot of experience running CTM ads, right? These are ads that you create for Facebook or in Instagram, that when you open a conversation like in Messenger, right? And so, ads that are going to open or will drive to a conversation to Instagram, it's going to be a whole new world, right? This kind of like behavior for consumers is net new for them. And so as you think about, IG automation and creating a conversation at scale, how are you thinking about like the difference between like kind of like regular IG ads that just open to a website versus the IG ads are going to drive to a bot, right? Any best practices or obstacles that you're anticipating in this kind of new world of ads that open to IG bots or chatbots?
Yes. Make them short and make them very direct. You need to consider that Gen Z and millennials, we are socially anxious. If a person from our age, let's say 35 down or even 40 down, is going to be asking something on social media, the possibility is that they're super scared to ask. Like, they want to bother customer support the least amount possible because they're very customer support oriented, especially with Gen Z. Gen Z doesn't want to drive you into a long conversation because they want to support the person on the other side. They know there's a human on the other side. So for Instagram ads, when you're trying to contact and connect with those audiences, the best practice is to use the conversation starters that Jonathan showed you in the beginning, because they're going to give these generations the possibility of just clicking something without having to think, what can I ask that is not going to get this person into having to dig super down. And more often than not, they actually go into your Instagram feed to try and find the information they're looking for. So the conversion rates on Instagram are going to be higher because the people asking are more likely to purchase. They've done their research, they've gone through all the posts. They are not less conversationalist, but they are more polite in their conversation. So it's easier to sell to them. They're already super interested in the product that they're asking. So I would think best practice would be, if you're targeting either millennials or Gen Z, make your bot or automation, make your automations super short, super direct. They don't have to be, and they shouldn't be, the super lengthy flows we create on Facebook, because you're going to be overwhelming a generation that is not into that whole set of conversational aspects via automation.
If I were to force you to set like a time limit, right, on a consumer's interaction with the bot, especially coming from an ad, like how long should that conversation last, max? Should it be like 1 minute, like max? 1 minute.
1 minute.
Wow.
And something that we do apply to all of our clients is what we call the fake follow-up. So with Manychat, what we do is as soon as a contact comes in, we assign a customer support agent. The second, it's a rule. New contact comes in, sets up a trigger that is going to assign a live chat agent and starts a countdown for 60 seconds. So after the 60 seconds are done, if let's say Jonathan is my assigned live chat agent, it's going to send a text that says, "Hi, Teresa, I'm so sorry it took me this long to get back to you. My name is Jonathan. I'm going to be taking care of you today." You didn't send that. The automation sent that, but it's going to be the real person behind the conversation when the bridge has been crossed towards human customer support, which is something that we're looking for.
I have something to add if I could.
Yeah, please go ahead, Paul.
So I agree with that on it as a general statement. But if you're going to have a longer experience, say, so you had asked her how she had dug into her customer psychology. We do a segmentation survey that's really in depth. And so the best thing that you want to do if you're doing an in-depth, anything that's longer than a minute, around what Jose was saying, prep, like make sure that you're preparing people for that. So you say it's 10 questions or whatever, so that they know in the back of their head how long it's going to be, or this short survey will take less than 2 minutes or less than 5 minutes or something along those lines. Whenever you have an ask, and even an ask could be in something that's culturally assumed, like the cultural assumption is that you're going to be interacting with this bot for maybe a minute or less. And I guess the assumption or the assumptive ask is that they're going to go through the whole thing. You need to let them know, like, this is going to take longer. Or you're going to say, hey, you mind if we follow up in a bit with more questions or something along those lines. So I just wanted to add a little bit of clarity to that from our.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's always a good idea, especially in this new world of IG ads, is to set customer expectations, right? I think when people was in the example that I showed earlier, the message template ad, I think a lot of consumers will be actually kind of weirded out or shocked that they're actually having a conversation with a bot. So I think, setting expectations like, hey, I'm a bot, you're chatting with me. The conversation should last about maybe, 1 to 2 minutes or maybe longer, but it's going to be valuable for you for reasons X, Y, Z is always a good, bot best practice. So that's great. Trilcy, I want to ask you just a couple more questions before you leave. I think from a tactical perspective, I think that getting into customer values is great. Trying to get customers to act as brand loyalists on your behalf is great. On a tactical level, though, like any last tips and super tactical takeaways for the webinar attendees here, in terms of actually creating the ads and running kind of a machine on creating kind of like ads. So I know it's a lot of work to come up with the ad creative, to come up with the copy, to test it, and then see if it's working, and to sort of make it this like iterable machine where you're constantly learning from your ad performance. So any kind of like tips on this kind of like workflow, this repeatable train of ads, and how to make this a little bit smoother for some of the marketers who are maybe strapped for time out there?
Yes, because some of the biggest mistakes that I see on Instagram ads are when they share the ad with the square Facebook post, and there's nothing that looks tackier nor like it's just unprepared. Like I know that when I see an ad, like an ad on Instagram that has the square image, they didn't even consider the possibility of it showing on Instagram ads. They didn't even think about the audience that was going to be seeing it. So always resize. Facebook ads allows you to place different images for different placements. So if you're going to send something on stories, make sure it has movement. You can do that super easily on Canva automations. Make sure it has some sort of music that is going to be relatable to whatever you're posting, and make sure it is the correct size. Like my thing is like graphic design for everything. Like proper graphic design is going to get, and obviously proper copy is going to get more people in. So always keep in mind, you have to resize and you have to keep the margins, because there are people who are resizing but are placing the copy way too high or way too low where it's covered by the normal buttons and normal sections on IG stories. So you're losing part of the visibility and legibility on your ad by not following IG margins.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great great tip. It sounds obvious, but you got to be thinking about the format of where your ad will appear, right, and how it's going to appear to the consumer. So
Yeah,
is
some
where the
people just
consumer
think
chooses
it's
for.
easy to grab the same square one because they say, oh, it's just going to resize it, add a background, and put a copy below. No, it just looks like your brand is unprepared.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool, awesome. I guess any last tips for just broad advice for anyone maybe who's like just starting out with IG ads, or maybe wants to create more because they know IG automation is coming? Any last tips just in general?
Yes. Something that I always teach my students is you've got to absorb from the people who know. My dad's saying is, he who knows knows, and he who doesn't know is usually the boss. Don't go by what the marketing manager says. Go by what the salespeople are actually asking. Go by what they know is some things they have to ask, the things that they're being told, because the ones that are engaging in conversation and actually selling to the people are the people on the floor. So if you just go by the marketing manager saying, I want to create an ad for a 30% discount on this product, yeah, you're not telling me anything. You need to talk to the people on the floor, listen to them, how they sell, and what the customer says back. Because that, by absorbing the information from the people on the floor, you're going to create the most engaging ads, because you'll be speaking in the exact same way that the customers are speaking to the salespeople.
Cool. Awesome. That's great advice. That's great. It's great. Awesome advice. So both tactical and strategic for you guys. Trilce, if you got to run, feel free. So thank you so much. Everyone give some love to Trilce in the chat. Before we move on to, Lauren and Paul, I want to quickly show and answer a question that was in the chat. Everyone was asking me about like how we did the message template ad. So I'm going to quickly show you guys and actually walk you through how to do it. So I'm in Ads Manager, super quick run through. I'm going to click messages.
Are you a Studio Ghibli fan?
I am, yeah. I am. That's why.
Please tell me that's why you named this ad account.
Yeah, it's actually it's a fake account that I use for testing purposes. It's my dog, and my dog is named Ponyo. So that's why I named him after the Studio Ghibli movie. So anyway, so in new campaign, you guys can figure that out. That's its general ad stuff. Under messaging apps, you click Instagram Direct. And then you guys can figure all this other stuff out here later and up to your choosing. The key thing you need to change, and I'm just like create a media just here. And please don't follow my this example. Use Trilce's advice and make sure that the formatting is correct. But as you can see in the story ad, the CTA send message, right? And in the feed, it's send message. Here is, you have the section called message template, and you can create new, and then you have the FAQ that you can customize. So that's how you create the message template ad that I showed earlier. And in Manychat, you're gonna create a keyword for this phrase or for just a specific word, and that's how you kind of connect IG ads to Instagram automation by Manychat. So that's a quick example. But I've been speaking too much. Lauren hasn't, and Paul haven't had a chance to speak. So I'm definitely gonna give them the rest of the runtime here. Lauren, I know that you have run so many IG ads. Why don't you just talk about kind of like your experience running IG ads and kind of like what has been in your eyes the top 3 benefits of running IG ads for your business?
So I spend anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000 a month on ads on Facebook.
Wow.
Instagram accounts for a lot of it. And yeah. I used to do a lot of ads for automotive. So when you're like, oh, what? I was like, they were like my first Manychat like groups. Like I had like all Mitsubishi Canada. It was awesome. But the top 3 benefits for Instagram, speaking to the fact that it's a different demographic than Facebook is. Facebook is definitely my generation plus. Can I pretend I'm in Chelsey's generation and just a bit younger?
No, let's say you bridge the gap. You straddle the divide. That's great.
I'll be on the cusp. But secondly, it's a more affordable placement, because if you can build out like a stories carousel, for example, which I found to be some of the best for high click-through rates, and you can only do that if you're doing the placement for Instagram stories. That I've just found to be really impactful and engaging, fun way to display your brand in a creative sense. If you're using, the 9:16 vertical size, which is a 1080 by 1920. I can't remember the dimensions that Chelsey spoke. I think it's like 150 pixels from the top and 400 from the bottom. But it is a great way to demonstrate your brand and overtake those that aren't leveraging the creative placements. And then the third benefit I would say is that when folks are on Instagram versus when they're on Facebook, the conversation centric is there in Instagram for DMs, whereas Facebook, it's there to like vent in groups, where on Instagram, it's like connect directly, give me an answer now. Like I'm that Amazon Prime now person.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I think I want to circle back to that point because that's really interesting. Facebook is kind of geared towards groups and for group discussion. So that's a really interesting tidbit about consumer behavior that I want to circle back to. But in terms of the story placement, right, and just like the format, I want to touch on that one final time. Is that like, would you ever recommend that someone like creates an ad and then they like repurpose the creative for multiple placements, aka for Facebook or IG? Okay, so you would, but you got to make sure that,
contrary to like what Chelsey says, like even if you do the square and you're using the square on the placement, Facebook is going to delegate who that audience is going to most receive that in the auction process. So the Facebook ad buying experience in Ads Manager will relegate who that ad is served to based off of their past consumer behavior. So repurposing creative, I would do that all day long, especially if you're changing the copy, because I think one of the most powerful components of Facebook and Instagram as a combination is social proof on an ad. So if you're able to generate comments, which is what a huge part of this link or comment growth tool components will be, you're going to push your algorithm to go above and beyond in a much more cost-effective way. So yeah, I mean, I repurpose all the time. Like I even have like ads from 2016 that I'm like retesting because people haven't seen it. So
that's the thing, is that like, just because it's old to you doesn't mean it's old to somebody else. It's what's old to you is new to someone else. And you got to remember that.
And you can suppress, you can do audience exclusion. So you're not showing, I do a lot with video. So I found my like last creative recommendation is like video goes a lot further. With all the iOS changes, you're losing the ability to potentially retarget your individuals. Paul, you were saying like 26% of people are opting in, right?
I read that, the other day, and this is like data as of yesterday. So this is still rolling out. And as the adoption continues to, take place, we're going to see how many people actually opt into that ad tracking experience, which Lauren and I don't know if we have an over and under yet, but I have a sneaky suspicion that the majority of the people that are opting in are small business owners and marketers because they're like, I want my ads to work.
Yeah. Actually, let's actually talk about that like right now. Paul, could you just brief everyone briefly on like what the iOS changes are, how that's going to why that's obviously going to be hugely impactful for marketers, and what are maybe some possible workarounds in terms of being able to target, audiences that they want to target and to reach the customers that they want to reach.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, the changes, they announced this back in, I think last, I don't know, September, was it? They announced, it was a long time ago that they had announced these changes, but I think they're calling it like transparency in ad tracking or something along those lines. And really what they're doing in iOS 14.5 is they're giving users the ability to opt in or out for apps to track to track them across websites and other apps. And so now this really matters if you're using pixels, for example. If pixels are a huge part of what you do, then correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren, but it's a 24-hour pixel now, right? So now you have 24 hours as opposed to the maxes before were, depending on what it was that you were doing, sometimes up to 365 days. Most of the time, is it 28 days?
No, it used to be 28 days. Now everything has been changed back to 7-day view, 1-day click. I mean, that's the automatic on Ads Manager.
Right.
But my assumption, and I've moved everything to the 1-day attribution window. And then with the delayed reporting of 72 hours, I'm just like, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah. So like if you're optimizing for conversions, for example, like that's going to be pretty hard to do because of the ad tracking stuff. So how people are pivoting, I mean, I think that we're still figuring that out, honestly, to this point. Some of the things that I've started doing more aggressively is building custom audiences and making sure that on actions. So, this is a tool within Manychat that you can add people or remove people from custom audiences. So based on actions that they take inside Manychat, you can add them to a custom audience. You can remove them from a custom audience. One of my favorite things to do is actually add them to a custom audience that I use as a negative match, meaning that we're showing somebody an ad and we can, in the flow, we ask them, did you find the product and purchase? They say yes. Then we'll remove them we'll set them to a negative match so that they stop seeing the ad. But in terms of like optimizing for conversions, Lauren, I don't know what you're doing, but it's kind of I don't know. It's
I'm
interesting
using
right now.
UTM parameters, and I'm using Google Analytics and then Wicked Reports to look at them afterwards. But I have big budget campaigns where I'm doing $100 to $500 a day. I wouldn't necessarily recommend Wicked Reports for anyone else, but you can use Google Analytics to look at attribution. That's going to be your best friend, especially as in June, Facebook Insights, Audience Insights are going away. So I imagine there's going to continue reduction of services available to you. But the biggest thing that I'm pivoting from is using Facebook and all of the things within Facebook that I can use for retargeting and I can use for behavior. So if you can do a conversion from Manychat and you can do something like, Paul, you've got the, after you bought the product registration, you can tag them with that product and then you build a quasi CRM. But my biggest thing is you're gonna have to start looking at Shopify, looking at Klaviyo, and looking at Manychat to track those conversion metrics outside the platform.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna put a bow on this. I really feel that there's going to be a lot of emphasis on external data metrics analysis, as opposed to like internal straight within Facebook.
Yeah, fair enough. I think there's two like major issues, which is one is like attribution generally. And I think what Paul and Lauren are saying is that you got to use external tools to understand attribution, to ultimately see if your ads are working in the key event, aka a purchase that you want to optimize for. But secondly, in terms of like reaching your audience, right? The answer is use data that you can capture, right? Broadly speaking, the theme of the reason why iOS put this out there is because they don't want like this data being shared more broadly. But if you're able to capture data that's specific to your business that you own, aka via Manychat, then that's gold, right? And that's key. Of course, that's going to be important and specific to your business. I see some realtors in the chat there. For a realtor, a conversion event for you is like booking an appointment, right? So you want to optimize your audience for everyone who like wants to book an appointment. So you should build custom audiences in Manychat, and that's the beauty of Manychat is that it's IG automation, but it allows you to capture important information about the customers that are most important to you. So thank you for that advice. That's great overview. I know there's a lot of news about it, so and marketers are pulling their hair out. So thank you for that sage advice. I want to circle back to the idea of like, using your customers as brand advocates, because Paul, I know that you guys do that really well at Bow and Bell Littles. Could you maybe tell the audience about kind of like what is your strategy around that and how that relates to IG ads specifically?
So it's funny because Lauren is CEO of Mongoose Media, and she's also a CMO at Bow and Bell Littles. So we could talk about this together because she and my wife have been working on retooling this for almost a year now. Like it's huge. So we've been using partnering with nano and micro influencers specifically. We're aggressively targeting them. Now that's not to say that we don't work with macro, mid-tier, and mega. I mean, we've worked with some celebrities in the past, but one of the reasons why we like working with our nano influencers, and thanks for putting that in the chat. So if you guys go to Instagram, you can look at the tagged photos. It's interesting, like our engagement on our page is really not that great, like from our audience. But if you look at the engagement on our brand ambassadors and our brand reps photos, their engagement is really good. And so that's really one of the reasons why we like partnering with nano influencers is I guess we would be considered a challenger brand in that we're really small. We're in a very tight niche. We sell reusable swim diapers online. We have a little bit of a retail footprint. It's very small. And so one of the key issues we were facing, we still face is brand awareness. So 4 years ago, we started this program where essentially we were just working with brand reps on Instagram. So if you do this now, you can still do a hashtag search for hashtag brand rep search. And the majority of the results you're going to pull up are when it comes to brand rep, it's in the mommy space. Now, if you look for brand ambassadors or something along those lines, that's going to open up to more like health and fitness brands. They use different terminologies depending on what niche you're in. But that was the issue that we were facing, was brand awareness. And it's at the time 4 years ago, it was my wife and I. I don't think we had any employees at the time, and so it's she and me, and we're running the account. Neither of us are really good at Instagram. I'm kind of in that betweener generation between, what was it, Gen X and millennial or whatever. I don't know. So I'm like a digital nomad, if you will. And I didn't grow up with a phone in my pocket taking pictures. So it wasn't natural. So that was like hard for me. I wanted to co-opt our audience and build an audience of people that just wanted to take photos of their kids in our stuff all the time. And like most of the things that I do, it started off with just this idea that I ran as an experiment. We ran as an ad and it ended up working. That was actually honestly how I got into Manychat, working with Manychat, is I had this idea that I thought could work and it ended up working. And now here I am, 4 years later doing that. So it's interesting because working in chatbots and then influencers kind of was almost in parallel. And now we're doing it together, where all of our brand applications, our brand ambassador applications, are being processed and run through Manychat. And so the possibility of working within Instagram, and now all of our influencers, by the way, are on Instagram. But we have the group on Facebook, right? So most of our communication is in Facebook, in Messenger. And the best thing about this that I'm stoked about is the native experience that we can have now, instead of taking them from Instagram to Messenger, which was a little bit of a pattern interrupt. It's not that huge. But like Trilce said, there are a lot of people that they're on Instagram. They don't want to use Facebook. They don't want to use Messenger. They want to use Instagram, even though it's the same company, right? They just want to stay on Instagram. So now our ability to be able to process those applications in Instagram just is now opening up, and I'm stoked about that. So I don't know if I did a really good job explaining what it is that we do, other than we partner with people. Lauren, you're smiling. I just kind of rambled.
It's leveraging the conversations to start in Instagram and keep them in Instagram where they want to be. Because before, you were forced to leave the Instagram platform with an ad and open up a separate app. And I'm sure, Jonathan, you're going to jump on this in a bit, but like the ability to do like Instagram direct and even like having those keywords further, like there's a lot of opportunity to keep people where they want to stay.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think, as you said, the expectation with Instagram direct is that you're going to have a one-on-one conversation, right, with the business, or at least with someone with the business. So that's key. I actually want to follow up on that point. So in this new world with IG automation, we'll be able to send someone directly to an IG DM conversation. Lauren, what are the situations where maybe like the CTA on your IG ad actually will not be driving to a conversation? And what are the ads you might run that you would maybe direct to a conversation? So like I just like website destination versus like DM destination. Sure. What are the situations or kinds of ads where you might think about sending one to the other?
There's like a Spectrum truck. So if you hear that beeping, that's not me, I promise. So I think in terms of where are you sending them to the destination page, landing page, sales page, squeeze page, what have you, or are you starting the conversation as where are they with you in your interaction? So in targeting, you can target if they've watched videos, engaged with your page, do they like your page, all that kind of jazz. So I would rather start a conversation with someone who doesn't know me before sending them directly to the sale. I can like dating on Facebook and ads on Facebook similarly. And like, I'm not trying to have someone like propose on the first date and say like, hey, here's my house, here's my ring. But I am okay if they like hit on me and slide into my DMs kind of situation. So ad examples. I think the best way to start a conversation is to be funny or to have fun, just in general, have fun. Like I'm like a little kid at heart. My background is like from Disney, where all we did was play. So if you can infuse play in any way, DMs always. Quizzes, you know, I was talking to you earlier, Paul, like we're going to do like jokes and we're going to ask the joke on the Instagram ad, and then they're going to reply back with the answer. And if they get the answer right, that keyword will trigger a specific flow that will award them for it, or we can start a conversation. That's based off of scale, how much you can manage.
Let's talk about that. So this is an active campaign that we're running. We've been running this since November, was it? October? I don't know. When did this
Sounds right. COVID brain.
Yeah. Yeah. So we started this just SMS campaign where we send out a poop joke every week, and it's hilarious and people love it. And so then, you know, but probably 3 or 4 weeks, and I don't know, we'll pepper in like some promotions and things. And those promotions end up actually, you know, converting because people are opening the text messages because they're hilarious. And so one of the things that we want to do is actually crowdsource poop jokes from kids, because I don't know if you guys ever interact with 6-year-olds like I do, but they tell hilarious jokes, and the reason why they're hilarious is they don't make sense, and they're just really dumb and funny. So we want to crowdsource poop jokes, and that's one of the things that we're going to be doing within IG stories is like, hey, tell us your best poop joke, whatever, and then we'll enter them into, you know, a funnel of some type, or it'll be like, what was the psychiatrist one? Well, why can't you hear a psychiatrist use the bathroom? Because the P is silent. So we'll ask that question, like, why can't you hear the psychiatrist use the bathroom? And then if, you know, because the P is silent or something, that could be a keyword. So if somebody gets it, we're like, hey, good job, you got it, well done. Or, oh, so close. And then you let automation take over from that point. But yeah, that's a real world example of something that we're actively doing, that we're modifying so that we can use it with IG automation.
These are great answers, right? Like you got to think about your funnel and where your audience like is in that funnel, right? From an ads perspective, you're targeting prospects and cold audience. Maybe it's good to warm them up with fun experiences like jokes, or with a simple one like a product quiz, or deliver a piece of value, right? Like an ebook, right? And conversations are great for those. And that gives everyone a taste of your brand, right? If you set up the chatbot in the right way and your chatbot speaks like your brand and it has like we talk about brand values, that's a good way to communicate explicitly and implicitly the kind of values that you have. And then you can go for the sale another time, right? Like let's say you prospect that cold audience, you create a custom audience of everyone who's already engaged with the bot, you know they're warm, and then you can go for the sale another time. So
yeah,
that's
I would actually to touch on that, Jonathan. So with the conversation, having fun is great to start that conversation, and then you get them in the realm where you can retarget because they're interacting with your Facebook ecosystem. But if you have a really warm audience, and I'm talking about like your evangelist audience, you can do a DM type of ad. We have a client and they have a different flavor that comes out every month. So we're going to have a teaser that says like, hey, can you figure out what this next one is? And we have tags and keywords based off of all the different flavors that they carry. And then if they get it right, congratulations, they get a sneak preview because we usually sell out the first week. And if they get it wrong, they have the chance to guess by some hints and stuff. So we do that specifically to our like most engaged audience. And then we have them just bragging about us on their socials on our behalf. So, and that's like so cheap if you have that super engaged audience.
Another thing you could do to help build to that engagement, I want to touch on this because you talked a little bit about it, Lauren, and it was also in chat. I think it was Penny had said with video engagement, that still works, right? So we know that you can retarget people based on percentage of views of video watch, right? So you can set up a whole ads waterfall is what I'm borrowing this from Rachel Miller, by the way. So it's her terminology. She calls it the ads waterfall method, which is essentially Lauren's dating in a bar scenario, right? Like you're not going to go in and propose to somebody when you first see them, like locking eyes. No, you're going to walk over, start a conversation, maybe ask to buy him a drink. I don't know how this works because I'm not a smooth guy. I never did that successfully, and it doesn't, I don't know. But that's how it happens in movies, right? You buy a drink and then whatever. So with the ads waterfall method, you basically retarget people based on percentage of views of video watch. So video one could be, there's a problem exists. So let's say that we're talking about swim diapers. Kids have to wear a diaper when they go swimming. What happens if they go poop? And maybe you would retarget somebody based on a percentage of view that they watch. And then you would say, you know, it sucks when you go to the pool and you don't have a swim diaper. Man, that sucks, doesn't that? And then, so you're elevating the problem from there's a general problem to I have this problem. Then you go to third, we have a solution for that problem. You know, you could even go, you know, 4 or 5 steps if you wanted to, but it's pretty straightforward where you're gradually bringing awareness, and then you're converting it from an awareness campaign to a direct call to action purchase campaign. And at the very bottom of the funnel, those ads are really cost effective because you're only targeting people that have essentially self-selected, raised their hands and said, that's me, I need to buy this product. Instead of just broadly targeting everyone in the world that might be a good fit, you know, your ad costs are going to be a lot higher that way.
That's great advice. It's awesome. We only have about 5 minutes left, so everyone, we're going to get to Q&A in a second. So please use the Q&A box in the Zoom webinar. Ask your questions there, and we will get to them. So we're going to give everyone a couple minutes to do that now, and we're going to answer them live. While we give people time to ask their questions, I guess when I open it up to Lauren and then to Paul, general advice for someone creating IG ads. It could be anything from creative advice to targeting to how to think about and strategize IG ads, right? So Lauren, like top 3 pieces of advice for anyone creating IG ads out there.
Different than Facebook ads, IG ads specifically, you don't have as much visibility of the copy. So that headline, you know, your first 100 words matters. And banging off of what Shilse said earlier, you need to hook them in with something that's interesting for them to click that read more. Because if you have more to say on the ad, you need them to say that read more. So literally spend most of your time on that first line of description. If you're doing a carousel, then be mindful of the different headlines. So I would say that's one. For Instagram, be mindful of if it's in feed or in stories. Story consumption is like ridiculously higher than it is feed, but you can potentially pay more for that story placement. It depends. There's a lot of things that factor into it. But be mindful of where they are consuming it, because what are they likely seeing before and after your story ad? If it's a story, that's something that's going away 24 hours later. So you want to have something that looks as native as possible. Because now what's great with Instagram Direct and like having the keywords that you're able to do with the triggers with Manychat, you're going to lose actually that button. And we've become almost like ad blindness, or like we know that that's an ad, so we swipe on anyways because that button is there and it's a big call out trigger. And I'm like, I don't want to see an ad. I want to see like puppy photos. Like I want to see more of Jonathan's Ponyo. So I'm going to keep swiping away. But if you use the Instagram Direct, you get to have that more like native experience. And then if you're using specifically the feed, you just remember that these are potentially posts that they're seeing from celebrities and other ones. So you want to have a stronger call to action that hooks them, and things that can be fun. Like Chelsea talked about with her mattresses, talking about statistics, like those did you know are really good hooks where she's selling water or the lack of water versus the hose.
Right.
Those kind of things. So that's 2.
Yeah.
I feel like those are
great. Those are great advice. Yeah. Like again, think about formats, right? With stories, think about the ephemeral kind of nature of stories, and remember that some consumers might have what we call banner blindness, right? They don't really like think about or want to engage with ads. So that's great. Paul, over to you. Top 1 or 2 or 3 tips for anyone creating IG ads out there.
I mean, Lauren did a really good job. I would just add in, think through that it is a different audience than Facebook. And I don't know if you would agree with this, Lauren, but you almost need to have more of a you need to have a lot more thumb stopping power within the actual creative itself. Because Instagram is such a visual platform. It's not like with Facebook where, you have a half decent creative and you're just, scrolling through feeds and you got memes everywhere, and then yours is good. So it might stop a thumb. You have to have a lot more thumb stopping power behind your creative. Plus that, I mean, it's the combination of the creative and then the copy, like Lauren said. And I would say that you need to be willing to test, especially if you're new to this. You got to be willing to throw some money to the ad machine in order to test and split test which versions work best.
Cool. Awesome. And I think for some webinar attendees, this is a bit over their head. Where could someone, what's a great resource for someone just to get started on the basics of IG ads? Any YouTube courses or resources that you guys would recommend?
Kelly Mirabella's videos with ManyChat.
Yeah,
Started
those are great.
YouTube has like a channel that's set up, and I know ManyChat's like creating new ones, and it goes like very high level, like step 1, open up, click create ads. Creating ads inside ManyChat for Facebook ads is definitely where I'd start. If you're new to it, start at ManyChat, go inside, it's on the left-hand side, go for your paid ads within in ManyChat. If you've graduated past that, I personally prefer working out of the ads manager system, but that's because I'm at a much
An expert.
higher level.
Very good. Great. So I'm going to quickly burn through some of these questions. I think only I can answer some of them. So I'm going to try to get through them. So Gitius, will the privacy policy changes in the EU affect the capacity possibilities of IG ad automation? Unfortunately, the EEA restrictions in Europe will have some impact on IG. They will not be as severe. The only limitations are kind of around media. But anyways, all of the EEA changes will go away at the end of Q2. A lot of the feature and functionality have already returned. So that's kind of a moot point. So that's that. What are the rules when it comes to Instagram bots? Same 24-hour rule in Messenger? Yeah, so we will have the same 24-hour rule in Instagram as we will with Messenger. That sounds bad, but here's the good news. You guys have a built-in organic free re-engagement tool, and it's called Instagram. So that's your way to really re-engage your audience and then start a conversation. So if you guys do a good job of making it really easy for customers to start a conversation with you, aka with keywords or with conversation starters, that's going to be really pretty easy to re-engage kind of your audience. And so I know a lot of questions about when is Instagram automation coming out. I'm sorry, I do not have a firm date for you guys. And trust me, I know that I want to give you guys a date, but unfortunately, we can't say when the date is going to be because of Facebook. They have told us to be quiet for now. Just let us know that it's coming soon. And that, of course, we'll let you know more information when we have it. Is it possible to create Instagram ads inside Manychat from inside Manychat? No, not as right now. Again, the biggest way to do that is going to be around keywords. And so you need to create a lot of keywords, right, for the ads that you create, right? So for example, you create a story ad. In the story ad, the CTA says, message me this keyword. Then you set up a keyword.
And you can go, so on that, you go inside the ads manager platform. I recommend that you set the objective to messages. And then inside the ad set level, you go to Instagram direct. And then you can upload your creative. You don't have to have a URL. You don't have to have anything. You can literally just be like, you can ask the question of like, hey, DM, I think your example, Jonathan had like the ebook. So like DM right. Ebook and point down to it. And then it'll look like they're in a regular, like you're DMing me or Paul or Cassandra on Instagram. So you just go ads manager, objective is message, ad set level. The fourth option is Instagram direct, then upload your creative. And that's it.
Yep, that's great. That's great. Paul, I know you got to run, so everyone say thank you to Paul. Thank you, Paul. We'll stay on for a couple minutes and answer questions, but thank you, Paul. Thank you so much for your expertise.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Of course, love doing this and looking forward to the next one.
Awesome, great. I'm going to keep answering questions, Lauren, if you can stay on. So, what are the rules when it comes to Instagram bots? Oh, yeah, we answered that one. I think a lot of questions about when Viber or Telegram integration is coming. We don't know, and no news on that. So sorry. WhatsApp beta is progressing. It is taking a little bit longer than Instagram. So, but no firm date on that as well. Our focus right now at Manychat is ensuring that Instagram goes off without a hitch, and we build the best amazing product. So all I can say is Instagram first before WhatsApp, but the WhatsApp beta is progressing along, and we're slowly building out that integration for you guys. I'm really excited about that. Daryl asked a very simple question. If I'm doing a Facebook ad, can I send it automatically to an IG ad? So Lauren, basic question, but what's your answer there?
Yeah, so you just, still gonna sew inside the Messenger platform, you just change your placements. So inside the ad set level, you can change your placements and literally just, there's like Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, search. What's that fourth one? I either do all or I like only restrict it if I'm doing stories. So I always default to automatic placements because you'd be surprised where people want to engage. And I just lean on Facebook's $1 billion of investment inside their data.
Yeah, Facebook knows best. Let the algorithm do its work. It's like we're just really, really good at, right? And so let it do its work.
I have access to a lot of reps, and something that they have said, which is I'm like testing at the moment, which breaks traditional things that I would do. Normally I would have like a, a testing campaign and then an evergreen campaign that I'm like really trying to scale. Facebook for the last 3 years has been asking us to like reduce. They want it to be a simpler, cleaner business manager. I have like 20 campaigns running on some accounts, but they are asking with the iOS updates to do broader audiences. And I started that on Monday. And I have to say, so far, I've actually seen a lot more success out of my broader audiences, even though I test this like every other quarter. So right now, I would just leave that as like one little thing that I'm hearing from Facebook.
Got it. Cool. That's awesome. I think that's all the time that we have today. So thank you everyone for attending. Everyone say thank you to Lauren for giving us this amazing, tactical, usable, applicable knowledge. Everyone give her some shout out and love in the chat. So to everyone who joined late, yes, this will be recorded. This will be sent to everyone who registered. So thank you again for attending. Keep an eye out on your email, right, for when IG is coming out and for more details about features. So keep an eye on your email for that. We're releasing more content about IG as we go along. So everyone stay tuned, and we're really excited. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having me. I was like last one standing.
I know. Yeah, you're the last one. Thanks again, Lauren. All right, see you guys. Bye. I'm going to end the webinar now.